Good morning. Thanks so much. Oh, please be seated. Thanks so much. It's great to be back in Marion County. I want to thank Billy Woods for hosting us, and thank you for everybody that we have here today. We've got a good announcement here, and shows that we're going to continue to make progress on some of the things that we've said. And we've said since the time I was governor, we're a law and order state. We're going to support law enforcement, people that wear the uniform, and we're going to make sure our laws are enforced, and we're never going to let the inmates run the asylum in our state. And that's what's happened, and that's the right thing to do. But you've also had the backdrop for a number of years recently where other states and cities around the country, they were doing the opposite. They were blaming law enforcement, treating them poorly, lax laws that really benefited repeat offenders, and you saw their cities decay as a result of this. Prosecutors wouldn't prosecute folks, letting people out. So that created a situation that was really intolerable for a lot of people. Heck, that's part of the reason people have moved to Florida. When people would come over the years, the realtors who'd sell them a home, why'd you come? And you'd think taxes, a few years ago, you'd say, want to get out of the COVID nonsense from some of these other states. You'd think some of the stuff on education, and all those were true. But the number one thing they would say is they wanted public safety, and they weren't getting that where they were, and then they knew that they would get that here in the state of Florida. Well, one of the things, as this was happening, we saw an opportunity for our state to capitalize off the bad policies of those other jurisdictions in a way that benefited Floridians, and so we started the Law Enforcement Recruitment Bonus Program that provides $5,000 to all new recruits to all of our law enforcement agencies in the state of Florida, not just sheriff's departments, police departments, and our state agencies, whether it's FDLE, Highway Patrol, you name it. We saw an opportunity that if you're being treated poorly in San Francisco or New York City or all these places, then you come to Florida, $5,000 to start, but then more importantly than that, you'll be in a community that supports your mission. But we also wanted to apply those bonuses to folks in Florida who are new to law enforcement. It had been frowned upon in a lot of these other states, denigrated as something that you shouldn't want to do. And honestly, if I was treated that way in some of these other states, I wouldn't want to do it either. But in Florida, we wanted to send a different message to say, no, we reward this career choice. We think this is a noble calling, and so if you're doing it, maybe you're doing something else. If you decide to go into law enforcement, whether it's at a sheriff's department, police department, state, you're also eligible for the $5,000 bonus. So I think it's been really successful in both of those ways to recruit people from other states, but also to channel more talented people and continue to channel talented people into law enforcement in the state of Florida. And the $5,000 is nice, it's helpful. It doesn't go as far as it used to before we had all the inflation, but it is helpful. But I think more than that, people, when they see you get a $5,000 bonus, it just sends a signal that state of Florida has your back, and that is probably more important than the money for folks, and we're proud to be able to be there. So we are here today. We're going to be able to announce a new round of checks that are going out for the new recruits. But at first, I would just like to say, you have the legislature in session now. There's different things on this budget, that budget, all this other stuff. We have allocated in our recommendations pay increases for more than 4,700 state sworn law enforcement officers, as well as 730 state firefighters, 20% increases for entry level and 25% increases for veterans under this proposal. And that's like Highway Patrol, FDLE, all those. Now, obviously, we don't set the budget for the local, that's you guys, but we do for state, and I think that's something that is warranted. We've been sending Highway Patrol to the border under Biden to help, and some of our FDLE. Now we have all those agencies are working with ICE to do immigration enforcement, and we're leading the country in that, so as well as normal duties. So this is something that's really, really important, and that's got my full support to be able to get that done. But we're here today because we've reached a new milestone in our Florida Law Enforcement Recruitment Bonus Program. We've now awarded over 7,800 bonuses through this program, and that's really, really significant. And so we have about 700 checks in the mail and on their way to new law enforcement officers across the state in this most recent tranche. I do have 12 of them here for these Marion County deputies who are going to get their recruitment bonuses, and I'm excited that we're able to do this. You know, I talk to sheriffs and police chiefs. You know, they'll go up to some of these places. They'll go up to NYPD and say, hey, come down to Florida. They'll do this. I remember I was in Southern California a couple years ago. We had already done this program. We had already kind of put our flag in the ground, and people were looking to us as being a great law enforcement state. And I was talking to a police chief and like a nice place in Southern California. I was like, you know, how's it going? He's like, well, I'm doing great. I just have every single one of my police officers wants to move to Florida now because of what you guys are doing. And that's saying something because, you know, going from a place like Southern California, which has historically been one of the places people want to go, you know, to come to Florida. But I can tell you, I think what we're doing has made the folks in Florida safer. Our support at the state level, like I said yesterday, we had the sheriffs for the Hope Florida stuff. You know, I could have the greatest policies at the state level. You got to have folks on the ground who are doing it, and our folks do it very well here. Our sheriff's departments, our police departments. But you can have great sheriff's departments, police departments. If you have leadership that's trying to undercut you, or in some cases even stab you in the back, like you see in some of these places, then it's going to be very hard. So it's really a team effort. We've set the leadership and the policy. There's been great execution at the local level, and Florida's better off for it. But it's also set a tone that's gone beyond the state of Florida. I mean, I remember I was a couple years ago. I'm in San Francisco, walking and this was kind of like a thing. I had cameras. We were like profiling like what happens when you have really bad policies. You know, they talk about the defecation on the sidewalks and stuff. Literally, I was there 5 minutes and I see it. And then when you see it, it's kind of jarring because you're not used to seeing it. People just using drugs in the middle of public. And so it was kind of jarring. And so, you know, I'm walking the street. I got some cameras. So people kind of knew something was going on. Some of the kind of run-of-the-mill San Franciscans recognize me. Some of them may have had some choice words for me, but you know, it's a liberal city. What are you going to do? So that was fine. But then we're walking, and on the other side, there's San Francisco PD, and these guys kind of do a beeline over, and I didn't know what to expect. And they're just like, you know, we just want to thank you. You know, you're fighting for us. You know, all the way in Florida, they appreciated because that wasn't what they were getting at that time from the city or from the state. So what we're doing in Florida is meaningful, not just for the folks that are going to receive the checks, not just for the veteran law enforcement personnel who work hard every day, not just for our own citizens who are the primary beneficiaries of this, but I think we've really set a standard that other states are now trying to follow, and it's much harder for the states that have gone opposite of Florida to justify why they're doing what they're doing when you have such poor results to show for it. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved. This is really, really good. This will be the total amount awarded. So the $5,000 is after taxes. When we did the $1,000 bonuses for every law enforcement during COVID, you know, they're sending me all this money. I'm like, well, I'm fine. Like, you know, at the time, I couldn't send it back because if I sent it back, they could send it to blue states. I was like, well, why would I do that? So we did the law enforcement bonuses, and we did that $1,000 after taxes. So that was every sworn law enforcement, firefighter, EMT in Florida got that 3 years in a row in the state of Florida, and that was at a time when people were really treating them poorly around the country. The $5,000 bonus is $5,000 after taxes as well. So it actually, per individual, is more than that in terms of the program's cost. In pocket, they get $5,000. So it'll be $53 million to date. We'll hear from the sheriff, but I can tell you everybody that I've spoken with has used this as a valuable tool to recruit good people into their agencies. And, you know, it used to be, you go back like 30 years, like, man, people would line up to be able to work in law enforcement. And then I think what's happened is over the years, you know, there's a lot of other factors of the economy, but, you know, when you have like the media and these political people that are always attacking law enforcement, it's kind of like, okay, well, is that something that I want to do? And people think about it. And I think what we've done in Florida is really say, no, this is good. And so people have great opportunities here to really have a meaningful career. So I'm just glad that it's working out. I know we've got more to do, but I want to thank everybody that's been involved. So we're going to hand out the checks in a minute. First, I want Billy to come up, and then we'll hear from one of our deputies. So, Sheriff.
Thank you, Governor. First of all, for the visitors here, welcome. And also, I know this will come to surprise, welcome media. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here today. It is an honor to stand before you as the Sheriff of Marion County, and it is even a greater honor to stand here with our great governor and be joined by him in this today, Governor Ron DeSantis. Governor, on behalf of my entire office and the citizens of Marion County, I want to extend our deepest thanks for your continued support for law enforcement, not just in words, but in real actions. The recruitment bonuses that my deputies will receive here today isn't just a check, okay? It's a statement. It tells the men and women in uniform that their choice to serve and protect matters. Now, the governor's right. Now, we sheriffs talk about it all the time. Bonuses like this, initiatives like this is what helps us hire individuals. He's absolutely correct. We send them all over this nation. My recruiting team is here. My recruiting team, I told him a few minutes ago, I've sent them to New York. I had them plant a flag right there on their front door steps and said, hire them as they walked out the door. So it works, Governor. It definitely works. You know, that commitment and sacrifice are seen and valued by the highest levels of leadership in this state. Now, media has heard me sometimes talk about this, and other times I've had the opportunity to get up in front of cameras. But I always say, the state of Florida is a cut above any other state, okay? It's as simple as that. We are. Reason is because of the leadership in which we have. The leadership we have in a governor that recognizes the safety of his citizens in the entire state. The leadership in our legislation, in the House and the Senate, from our President Albritton and the Speaker Perez. These individuals, and all of them through that line, every one of them. Now, him and I will tell you, they're not always agreeing. It's just like brothers and sisters. We don't always agree, right? But however, we all collectively come together to recognize what is important, and that's the safety of the state of Florida. Governor, since taking office, you have always backed the badge. You've invested in public safety. That kind of leadership sends a powerful message, not only to my deputies, but to our entire community, which is Florida stands with law enforcement, which means a lot to each and every one of us. Now, to my new deputies receiving these checks, wear your star with pride. You know, you've heard me say this, and I'll continue to say it. You've joined a team, a family, and a calling that demands the very best from all of us. And thanks to Governor DeSantis, you're starting your careers with the full backing of a state that believes in you. Governor, thank you again for your steadfast commitment to public safety and for helping us build a stronger, safer Marion County. We look forward to continuing this partnership in service of the people we've sworn to protect. God bless you, and God bless this great state of ours. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate the job you're doing. Okay, Deputy Thomas Watson, where you at? Come on.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Governor. When I first received the call from Major Polford, I seen his name come up on my phone, and I thought, I'm either in a lot of trouble or I did something really good, or he's calling to find out why I wasn't in the gym that day. We didn't talk about the gym, and I haven't decided if this is a punishment or something good. Just kidding. So Major Polford, we spoke on the phone, he told me he had an opportunity for me. He asked if I wanted to take this opportunity to speak, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm terrified of public speaking, but this is an incredible opportunity. I was told that I would speak about why Marion County, why law enforcement. Well, why law enforcement? Short answer is God put me here. Long answer is, I was an EMT for 9 years before this. I always wanted to serve my community. I worked for a retirement community down in Leesburg called Hawthorne at Leesburg Resident Co-op. I worked there for 9 years, and throughout those 9 years, I attempted to leave several times to a municipal fire department. That was always my dream. And each time I would pray, I would say the same prayer with my wife. Lord, if this is not a blessing from you, please shut the door before it even begins. And each time he did, in a miraculous way that doesn't make sense. And so I began to become depressed because I thought that was my calling, and he kept closing the door on me. Then I met a good friend of mine, current Deputy Joe Anthony, and he told me about his dream of law enforcement. In his home country, he could not because his parents would not allow him. Then he moved to America, became a citizen, and fulfilled that dream. And seeing him fulfill his dream ignited something in me. And it got me making jokes, actually, about being in law enforcement. And for 3 months, I would make jokes to my wife what it would look like putting on this uniform instead of a fire uniform. And we'd watch TV, Hawaii Five-0, SVU, and I know it's not the same, but I would just sit there and watch it, and I would just make jokes. Hey, that might be me. Then after 3 months, I looked to her, I said, what if? What if this is God's plan for me? And she said, you're not joking, are you? And I said, no, I've been praying for 3 months. And so we prayed together for 3 more months. Then one day I was at work and I'm praying, Lord, if this is the right path for me, tell my wife, because she'll tell me. I kid you not. I say amen. She texts me. I don't remember the exact text, but it was to the effect of, honey, I know that there are dangers with this job. You will be shot at, possibly killed, injured. People will hate you, disrespect you. But I have a peace from God that he's going to be with you through the whole time. And so in that moment, I could do nothing but lift my hands up to the Lord and worship him. And I submitted my application in that moment. That's why law enforcement. Now why Marion County Sheriffs? Well, first they sponsored me to go through, and that's a big thing for me. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I have a family to think about. I couldn't just upend that and the good pay I was receiving at my last job. But they sponsored me. Even though it was a huge pay cut, I could see the light at the end of the tunnel and the beginning of prosperity. The academy was 6 months long. It was hard at times, seemed impossible. But my wife would constantly pray over me and bless me. Secondly, Ocala, Florida is my home. Marion County, I was born here, raised here. Went K through 12 here. Graduated from Vanguard High School. Marion County Sheriff's Office is known throughout the community. Some good, some bad. It's just the way it is. Mostly positive, though. Almost everything I've ever heard has been positive from members in my church, including my pastor, my friends, my family, but more importantly, deputies that actually work here. And they all say the same thing, that Billy Woods is an amazing sheriff that genuinely and sincerely loves and supports his staff. And having that support is paramount in this job. And that's why I chose Marion County Sheriff. I'll leave you with this. My Lord Jesus Christ says in John 15:13, greater love hath no man than this, that a man may lay down his life for his friends. Thank you.
Good job. You read the name? Is this in this order, do you think?
All right, the governor's now going to give them each their checks. First off is Deputy Thomas Watson. Deputy Courtney Cole. Deputy Salvatore Bassisi. Deputy Wade Young. Deputy Antonio Gibbs. Deputy Kenneth Stevens. Deputy Maynard Canton. Deputy Brittany Knipe. Deputy Michael Minu. Deputy Giovanni Rodriguez. Deputy Keith Brickman. And Deputy Gage Clements. And Governor, two of them, one's a Marine and one's a Navy.
Okay, good deal. Well, thank you. I always say to the Navy and Marines now, since December, I guess 8th, is it's good to be on the winning team in the RV Navy game for a change, because we had a few years where we weren't doing so hot. But I think you can see, we've got great quality individuals that have participated in this program. Sheriff Woods have used this program to better their organizations and ultimately to keep their communities safe, and that's what it's all about. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved in establishing and continuing this program. It's really made a difference, and I know that it's changed a lot of lives of the folks. And I don't know if you guys have anybody, but I've never met anyone that made the trip to Florida to work in law enforcement who regrets it. So once you find someone, let me know. Okay, we got any questions? Yes, sir. I have not endorsed that bill. I know there's different bills floating around. My practice is typically let's let this thing work through, and then if it lands on my desk, then I'll come out with a decision one way or another on it. I mean, I will say that if you put Florida first, then you're looking to make sure that Floridians can be successful, and the horse breeding is part of our state's culture. It's part of the culture here. I'm concerned with some of the things I hear about these proposals, about what that would mean for the viability of that going forward. But we'll let the process work out, and we'll see how it ends up. Well, what happened with the Randy Fine is exactly what I said. He would win but underperform, and that's what happened. President won that by 30 points. In 24, I won it by 35 plus points in 2022. Fine is out there saying he won by the same margin I did. That is a total lie. I won by more than twice that he did in 2022 in that district. And so what happened there? The media is saying, Republicans had to spend money, and they did. They spent millions and millions of dollars. In 24, not 1 cent had to be spent in outside money in this district. Well, I don't know if are we actually in that district? I know he's got part of Marion, so it's a little over there. And so the fact that money had to be spent, that's not a good thing. This should have been a going away. And what happened was, but the media is trying to say, it shows. I think the Wall Street Journal said something about this is like an anti-MAGA backlash. I don't think that's true at all for this district. I think you have a candidate in Randy Fine who, one, he's a squish, okay? He supported restrictions on Second Amendment rights back in 2018. He tried to defeat my immigration proposal to help President Trump enforce immigration laws, and he tried to enact a make Florida a de facto sanctuary state. So when people see that, our base voters don't get excited about that. You're not giving them a reason to go out and vote. And he's also, just the way he conducts himself, is somebody, he repels people. He's repelled people in the legislature. He's repelled, they wanted to get him out of the legislature, so they asked me to put him up for Florida Atlantic president, and I did, and the whole board would have resigned rather than make him president. And so now he's going to be in Congress. I mean, it is what it is. So it was unique problems with this candidate that was causing this to be a close race. And I think it was trending to be a lot closer. Then what happened was, they put in a lot of money on the Republican side, $4 or $5 million in a Trump plus 30 seat. You shouldn't have had to do, but they did. And then the president did a couple teletown halls where he said, listen, for my agenda, we need you to go out and vote. So I think the election day turnout was really good for a special election for Republicans in the district. And I attribute that to President Trump's intervention. I think these are voters who didn't like Randy Fine, but who basically were like, you know what, we're going to take one for the team. President needs another vote up there, and so we're going to do it. So I would not read into the underperformance that this is somehow a referendum on MAGA or Trump. I think it was a unique issue with this particular candidate. The Democrats groups didn't spend any money. It was this one candidate raised money through Act Blue, but a lot of that is basically a fraud. It's a scam. And so how much money he spent, he probably spent a few million, but they spent more than that for fine. So I just view it as it's an underperformance. I think it's unique to the candidate, and the president really had to bail him out at the end, because this race would have been much closer had the president sat on the sidelines. And so if anything, it shows the president's got the juice to be able to get Republicans to go out on election day and even vote for a candidate that they're not crazy about. This guy, he lives like 150 miles away from the district. It's just an odd fit on that. But I do think that it was, there were unique circumstances in that CD6 race. So when people are trying to spin that to fit their agenda, I don't think you can. I think it was more of a local thing. This is a guy who's 150, he lived 150 miles from the district. They say, well, how do you know local issues? He said, there are no local issues in the district. Well, I can tell you, just as governor, you go around the state, there are local issues for sure that you got to contend with. Yes. I think so. One, I don't know for sure, but I think the difference is there was no money spent on behalf of Jimmy Patronis. There was $5 million spent on behalf of Randy Fine. If they had spent $5 million on Patronis, he would have had a bigger margin. The turnout would have been better on election day. But I think a lot of Republican voters, I think they liked Jimmy. I think it was just they knew that the race was going to go red. And so some of them didn't vote. Our voters, we haven't done as well in special elections getting our voters out generally. So I think the emphasis was really on the Randy Fine seat rather than Jimmy's seat. And Jimmy did get outspent pretty significantly. Randy did not get outspent if you count the PAC money that came in to support him. There was millions and millions of dollars that came in to support him at the end. So I think you got to, when you look at these races and you're comparing margins, if you don't have money behind you, your margin's going to be less because not as many people know the election and all this stuff. So I attribute that to that. I think if they had put the same amount of effort in terms of bringing money in, I think Jimmy's margin would have been better. But he'll do a good job. He's that was not necessarily his district when he was a House member, so a lot of people didn't know him from that, but they did know him from being CFO. So I would refer you to our event we did yesterday with Sheriff Woods and the other Florida sheriffs about Hope Florida. So what we were able to announce is that all 67 sheriffs now have a Hope Florida liaison in their offices. What does Hope Florida do? This was spearheaded by our First Lady, Casey DeSantis, to recognize, and it started with child welfare, but the model is expanded to other areas, that just simply having a government program and having a bureaucrat try to find programs for people to get on and stay on, ultimately that's not expanding that person's horizons. That's not helping them achieve a pathway to self-sufficiency. So her insight was that's more of a Great Society, War on Poverty, LBJ, left approach. Our approach needs to embrace the faith community, embrace our charities, embrace businesses that want to be philanthropic, embrace individuals who want to lend a helping hand in their community. So when she created Hope Florida, the insight is let's transform those bureaucrats into navigators. So when someone comes in need, their job is not to try to get them on government program, but to navigate them to all the resources that are already available in the community. And so you don't have to participate in Hope Florida. But we've got all these churches that are connected. We've got synagogues. We've got charities. So they're all part of Hope Florida Network. People's needs can get put into a portal, and then it goes out to all these great stakeholders in the community. And guess what? If someone's in need and a church answers the call, the chance that that person is going to have stability and have a pathway to be productive goes up dramatically than if you're just interacting with the bureaucracy. So since Hope Florida has been enacted, or since we've done the portal and everything, we've gotten 30,000 people off of welfare, and we've saved the state $100 million. And so that... So how that relates to this, so now you have a Hope Florida liaison. The people that know what's going on in the community more than anyone are law enforcement. They're out on patrol. They're responding to calls. You may get a call, domestic disturbance at like an apartment complex, but then you see other things that may be going on. And you interact with people that have issues. Well, now you're in a situation where, and I think the sheriff would agree with this, you know, a lot of the people that do eventually end up in law enforcement do have some type of mental health background. Not all of them. I don't even know most, but a lot, for sure a lot. And so if there's an intervention earlier, you could potentially avert that. Well, now with the Hope Florida liaison, you have an ability to find somebody that's in need and to get that out into all these great organizations and churches and individuals who want to lend a helping hand. So the sheriff's departments are going to be really, really critical in this, and that will also mean less work for them 3 years later, because with no intervention, this person may start committing crimes. So I think it's a great model. I think these guys are going to have an awful lot to do. Now, not every county in Florida has the same amount of resources in terms of what the churches are offering or what the private organizations are offering, but we've got a lot to offer in the state of Florida. And part of it, and this is an insight that anyone that's dealt with government kind of gets this. I remember when I was leaving active duty in the Navy, you know, I didn't need anything. I was fine. But like, you know, a lot of people when they're transitioning from military to civilian, it's a big deal. And they don't know. So they give you like a packet of stuff. Now this is, you know, 15, 20 years ago, whenever. And I get this packet. And, you know, like I had advanced, I mean, like, you know, I can understand stuff. And it was like mind-numbing bureaucracy. I was like, how the hell would anyone even know where to go to get help if they need a help as they leave the military in this? Our veterans, they get paralyzed with bureaucracy, all these other programs. And so it's like there's help out there, but people just don't necessarily know where to go. And now when you have this as kind of a hub for all these great resources in our community, and yes, we want to save taxpayer money, of course we do. But more importantly, we just know those other ways are more likely to work and more likely to actually help people. And yes, there's more liberal states that wince that we're enlisting the faith community in this. You know what? What I tell them is go pound sand. These faith communities are part of the way you lift people up. No one's got to go. I mean, if your church helps you, you're not under any obligation to attend that church in the future. Of course not. And no one's even asking that. But, you know, there are people who find themselves in predicaments because they're devoid of something that's really meaningful spiritually. And so, you know, you have folks that can do that, and it's soul craft as well as helping people get involved in society and get back on their feet. So look at that press conference yesterday. We have it on our social sites. First Lady articulated. We had Sheriff Permel, who's the head of the Sheriff's Association, come in and talk about it, and then we had one of our state senators. But I think this is a great model, and I'm not saying it can solve every single problem under the sun, but when you have deputies encountering some of these things, I would imagine if you talk to them, they will encounter situations and see people in community who have not necessarily committed a crime, or they don't have probable cause to think, but they just know things are not going to go well with them, right? Well, you can't arrest them if they haven't done anything wrong or you don't see it. So then it's just you kind of just hope that they're not going to do anything in the future. Well, now you have an ability to have a positive intervention. It doesn't involve the criminal justice system. That involves using the resources in society. So having a liaison for Hope Florida is a huge, huge thing. We now have all 67 sheriffs on that. And incidentally, we're the only state in the country that has immigration enforcement agreements with the Trump administration in all 67 counties in the state of Florida. So we're not a sanctuary state. We don't allow sanctuary cities. But we're also more than just not a sanctuary. We're positively making a difference. We have task force where you have sheriff's deputies, police officers, state ICE, all this stuff. And, you know, the reality is Biden, he opened the floodgates and intentionally brought in a lot of people. There was no vetting on anybody. We have no idea. It also is just a situation where, you know, it creates burdens on society to have so many people showing up. Like, we can't do. So this has been really, really positive, but we have all 67 counties, all state agencies, law enforcement agencies, and now we're working through the police departments to have them have this. Now, Sheriff Woods would have done this anyways, but we did do, when we did the special session, and, you know, the Florida House of Representatives was opposed to me. We eventually got it done, but, you know, we said your duty as law enforcement in the state of Florida is to be on the team and to help with federal immigration enforcement. And even some people that are more nominally conservative or Republican, some of those folks didn't necessarily want to be involved in it. And so we have a duty. We had the Fort Myers police did an agreement with ICE, and the city council wouldn't approve it. But we have a duty to follow the law. So we just said very calmly, you know, the policy debate about whether you should work with ICE is over in the state of Florida. We've enacted the law to say you must. So you have an opportunity to govern yourself accordingly, and so they reversed that decision, and then they did approve the agreement with ICE. But a lot of this would not have been happening had we not gotten that legislation through a couple months ago. I saw the need for a special session, and I knew we had to get it done early. So we're now ahead of the curve in Florida. DHS is looking for us as kind of the model as to how to work with states to be able to make sure that we're enforcing our immigration laws. And I can tell you, it's going to be better for the state for across many boards. I mean, obviously, we find people that are victims of crime from illegal alien, but you also just have healthcare costs, schools, traffic, accidents, all these different things. All those problems get alleviated when you have enforcement of immigration law. We have in the United States, they think, close to 1 million illegal aliens that are under final orders of deportation. So you hear the media say, oh, President Trump, he's taking a Venezuelan gang member and sending him to El Salvador without due process. Well, first of all, you know, your due process, if you're here illegally and they catch you, like, what are we supposed to do? Do a 9-month O.J. Simpson trial to figure that out? Like, we know you're here illegally. So, but put that aside. If you're someone that's a stickler for all this due process in that situation, these people have already gone through all the process. They have final orders pending. And in Florida, we think at least 40,000, maybe 50, maybe even more, are here in Florida, final orders. So we're working with these folks. Let's find those folks and do that. How could you disagree with that at that point when they've already gone through all the different process? So I think I mean, Biden, he would fly illegals into the country and release them. I mean, seriously, he would fly and release. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, they're doing it because they think that's the way to change the country. That was why he was doing it. I mean, you literally are going to show up in Haiti or some of these places, load up people who don't have a right to be here, bring them here and grant them parole. How is that benefiting you as Americans? It's not. It's part of a different agenda. Now, he may not have been the one signing the orders. It was an auto pen, so I don't know who programmed the auto pen, but it was true for 4 years. It was whoever is loading the teleprompter, whoever is wielding the auto pen was the de facto president of the United States. I'm glad those days are over, but the reality is there was a lot of damage done. So Florida law enforcement is playing a huge role in solving this problem that we've been complaining about for many decades. And so I want to thank them for being on the team. We had to work hard to get where we are, and you're going to see a lot, I think, of positive stuff in the ensuing weeks and months. Thanks, everybody.